Before you eat another cashew, you should probably know something. That nut has never existed in nature in the form you're holding right now. It had to be chemically disarmed first. No shell, no warning, just butter and salt, like it's nothing. Here's the thing, every other nut on that shelf comes in its armor. Peanuts, walnuts, pistachios, all packed the way nature made them. But the cashew is always naked, and that's not for our convenience. That's a strict safety requirement, because a truly raw cashew, shell intact, is one of the most caustic biological structures you can legally buy at a grocery store. The shell contains a resin that is chemically almost identical to the oil in poison ivy. Crack one open at home, and you're not getting a snack. You're getting chemical burns. So how does a nut that's basically a hazmat situation end up in your trail mix? Let's find out. Most nuts use their shell as passive armor. Hard wall, cellulose lignin, keeps moisture out, keeps insects out. That's the whole job description. The cashew shell has a completely different agenda. Sandwiched between two layers, yes, two, is a dark viscous liquid called cashew nutshell liquid. Industrial chemists call it, wait for it, CNSL. They really love an acronym. This stuff makes up roughly 25% of the total shell weight. And it's not sap, it's not sticky juice. It's a highly acidic caustic oil, aggressive enough to corrode stainless steel blades used in processing plants. This is why you will never find cashews in a bulk bin with their shells on. One cracked shell in a grocery store can trigger a contact dermatitis outbreak across the whole aisle. The cashew would be a lawsuit waiting to crack open. But to understand why the tree built this weapon in the first place, you have to go back to where cashews actually come from, because it doesn't grow where you think it does. Most of the world's cashew processing happens in India and Vietnam, in regions like Kerala and Tamil. But here's the part of the supply chain most people don't know. The majority of raw cashews aren't grown in Asia at all. They're grown in African countries like the Ivory Coast, Tanzania, and Mozambique, which account for a huge portion of the global production. Then those raw drupes get shipped across the ocean to processing hubs in India and Vietnam, because the labor economics make it cheaper to move the raw material than to build processing infrastructures in the countries that it actually grows in. So, the cashew travels from an African tree across an ocean into a South or Southeast Asian processing facility, and then across another ocean to a grocery store shelf in the West. Each cashew in that bag has covered more distance than most people do in a year. The reason isn't tradition or geography. It's math. Whole kernels command nearly double the price. Machines break too many. Human hands, working carefully and slowly, don't. And it's not just about the speed. It's the shape. Cashews vary slightly in size and thickness from harvest to harvest and from tree to tree. A machine calibrated for one batch will shatter the next. Human hands adjust instinctively. And at current labor costs, it's still cheaper to pay a person to absorb the chemical risk rather than to engineer a machine precise and adaptive enough to replace them. Hundreds of thousands of workers, the majority of them women, spend hours on processing floors cracking open heat-treated drupes by hand. Studies of workers in India show that close to 60% suffer from chronic cashew dermatitis. Many develop a condition called polymer cremadura, a permanent thickening and darkening of the palms from years of repeated acid contact. It's a slow-motion chemical burn, one shift at a time. In Vietnam, a 2011 Human Rights Watch report documented something more acute, a forced labor system operating inside government-run drug detention centers. People were coerced into processing cashews under a threat of physical abuse, without adequate protection, husking thousands of nuts a day. This is the supply chain behind a snack marketed as clean, natural, and wholesome. Here's something that'll slightly rearrange your brain. The cashew doesn't grow inside a fruit. Think about a peach. There's the flesh, and buried in the center, the pit, the seed, the part the tree actually cares about. The fruit is bait, a delivery system. The tree is essentially saying, eat this, go somewhere else, bring the seed with you. The cashew tree didn't get that memo. Instead, it grows this bizarre, pear-shaped, swollen structure that turns bright red or yellow when ripe. It's called the cashew apple, and it genuinely looks like someone crossed a bell pepper with a stress ball. Inside, juicy, aromatic, surprisingly sweet. It reportedly contains around 5 times more vitamin C than an orange. In Brazil and India, people make juice and fermented liquor from it. But here's the botanical twist. That apple, not actually a fruit. It's a pseudocarp, a swollen flower stalk. Scientists call it an accessory fruit, which sounds polite, but basically means the tree built a convincing decoy. The real fruit botanically is the small kidney-shaped drupe hanging off the bottom of the apple. The nut is on the outside. The apple lures animals in, the drupe hangs underneath, defended and weaponized. The apple says, "Come here." The shell says, "Don't you dare." And here's the other thing about this apple. It starts to ferment and rot within 24 hours of being picked, which means it essentially never leaves the tropics. We import the seeds by the millions and throw away the fruit it came from. Botanically speaking, the cashew has given us the most dangerous part and kept the delicious part to itself. One more thing. That shell liquid, the CNSL, doesn't get thrown away. When it's industrially treated and polymerized, it transforms into a heat-resistant, high-friction resin, and it ends up in brake pad friction lining. Crazy, right? A compound that can burn through human skin process becomes part of what stops your car. So, the forensic timeline. The cashew grows attached to the bottom of a fruit that isn't actually technically a fruit, and it's protected by a shell that will chemically attack anyone who touches it. Next, has to be hand extracted by workers absorbing the residual acid risk. Then it gets packaged, shipped, and sold as a health food. Every cashew you've ever eaten survived that entire process. So the next time you grab a handful of cashews, or toss them into your blender to make a dairy-free cream, take a second to appreciate the people who cracked them. Eat well, question what's in your food, or in this case, how it's processed, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.